What's up everybody, Rob here from the Basement Bike Shop, and in this video I'm going to give you my top 10 tricks and tips for BMX bike repair. Now all the tricks and tips I'm about to show you can be found in other videos that I've already made. So as I go through them, there'll be a link on the screen, or if you want to wait till the end, I'll put links in the description. The first one I'm going to show you involves when I have creaking between my crank arm and spindle, like on an 8 spline or a square spindle especially. I put some motorcycle chain lube on it. It's kind of sticky and thick, and it stops any creaking that happens. This also works if you have an older style seat guts to seat rails. You can use it there too. Next up, we have the simple green. Now, there are a lot of people who will tell you a lot of different things to use on your rim to get your brakes to grab. This is just what I use. Some people say that using other products will not make it squeal as much. Usually the squealing using the simple green goes away in a few minutes. But I find that if I really want my brakes to grab right away, this is what I've always used. Rubbing a little simple green on your rim, both sides, and it'll make those abubakas and fufunus just pop off right when you want them to. My next tip involves adjusting gyro cables, getting the flip-flop out, and just having it pull evenly and smooth. In my kink myriad installation video, I go through the whole installing of the gyro cables and then the adjusting at the point of the detangler and up by the lever and down by the brakes. I won't go through the whole thing right now, but if you want to see more on that, you can check out the video. There'll be a link on the screen, and there'll be a link in the description. My next cool trick and tip comes from my Odyssey Springfield install video, and it's setting brake pads. Now the easy way to do that is to take an adjustable wrench to hold your brake pad while you tighten down the back of it. I push the arm with the spring disengaged tight against the rim so it lines up exactly where I want it to hit, and then I tighten it down. Next up, removing the tight spot from a chain. So after you push the pin in to link the chain together, I actually like to push it in just a little further than it needs to go, and then I push it back a little bit from the other direction. Now if you have a tight spot in your chain somewhere else where wiggling it just isn't helping, you can always take your chain tool, push the pin a little bit one way, and then turn around and push it back the other way. And that usually does the trick. Next up, we have setting the chain tension without chain tensioners. Now the easy way to do this is to pull your wheel back and tighten down the non-drive side. And after you do that, you're going to pull the tire over with one hand, holding the frame. That's going to allow you to hold it in the exact position you want, to get the chain exactly the tension that you want, and then tighten down your drive side. Then go back and loosen the non-drive side, set your wheel straight, and then tighten it back down. always check for the tight spot in your chain. If your chain's too tight, it's just going to wear your bearings and your crank and your wheel down. My next trick is bending the brake lever. Now when you cut down your bars and you have to run your lever on the bend, you're going to want to bend your lever out a little bit so you have the same amount of pull. Now to do this, I clamp it in a vise and I use a seat post to bend it so that I don't have to touch the hot lever. And then I heat it up. Now if you're going to do this, I recommend that you watch my entire video on cutting down the bars and bending the lever so that you don't miss anything. Then after that, I check it with my stencil I made to make sure I bent it to the right amount. And then if there's any marks in it from the seat post, I use a grinder to get those marks out. And I actually ended up taking all the black off of it. And then I put it back together, put it on the bike. My number 3 trick of the day is removing grips just using water. And then I set them again just using hairspray. The reason I use just water is that way I don't contaminate the grip with any sort of oil or lubricant that later doesn't come out. And also water is something that everybody has. And all I did is I put like a WD-40 type straw under my grip so I could get the water down as deep as I can. Pour a little bit in there. And then I just work the grip back and forth until the whole thing just slides right off. One of my favorite tricks is setting bearings and cups using a bench vise. Now to prep the bench vise, I put little pieces of plywood on the jaws just so that I don't damage the frame. I hold it on with rubber bands. And then I do one bearing at a time. That way if it starts going crooked on me, I can adjust the vise and straighten it right away. And just work on getting one bearing in straight at a time. I line it up with the center of the vise. This works good if you don't have a bearing press and you don't feel like beating the bearings into your frame. After I get them set, I'll put a 2x4 on one side because that'll kind of countersink the bearing a little bit if it needs to be, because the 2x4 is a lot softer, has more give. And you can do this on headsets too, as long as your bench vise opens wide enough. But if you don't have a bench vise or a bearing press or cup press, then you can refer to the rod brace. Now the rod brace is about a 4-foot 2x4 that has rod brace written on it. And how this works is against a block or a concrete wall, I shim up the rod brace to the height of my bottom bracket and I put it against the wall so that it's hitting perfectly on the spindle without hitting any part of the frame. Here I'm using it to slide my spindle over further into my crank arm. I can also set the crank arm with it the same way. And you can do this to slide your spindle back over after you get both arms on, and if you notice that it's closer to one side than the other. Just using a piece of wood so I don't damage the spindle. I moved it over into the arm that's closest to the wall. Now I can set this arm on using the rod brace as well. And I also use the rod brace to move the spindle to the center of both arms. Now you can use the rod brace also to set one-piece cups, or if you don't have a bearing press or a cup press, you can set 3-piece bearings in the same way. And that about wraps up my top 10 tricks and tips for BMX bike repair video. Thanks for watching. I have a lot more tricks and tips out there if you want to check out my other videos. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button and I'll keep these videos coming. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, you can leave a comment below or you can send me a message. Thanks again.